Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening all. A very warm welcome to the 2025 NNN Submission Proposal Writing webinar. So thank you all for joining us today. We really hope this webinar will be helpful to all the submitters, whether it's your first time or not. So just a quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. So my name's Debbie Jackson-Cole from MYT, or Maximise Your Time. And we've been supporting the NNN since 2013, and I personally since 2014 in Paris. So we're the professional conference organiser, and I always work on the programme and speakers. And just to really say that we're really keen to ensure the programme and the workshops are as interactive and engaging as possible. So it's really great that you can join us today. We're also joined by Russell from MYT, who's our technical lead and often on site at the conference as well. Okay, so we'll shortly be hearing from Doreen Brenner, who is the Head of Operations at NALA and our new Vice Chair of the NTD NGO Network. We'll then be hearing from Yael Velman, who is the Director of Policy and Innovation at Unlimit Health and is the past Chair of the 2024 NNN Submission Task Group. And we also have Kat Gulas with us as well, and she's here to answer any questions you might have. So Kat is the NNN Network Coordinator, and she's going to be the point of contact for all confirmed workshop leads, rapid fire and poster presenters once we've completed the submission review process. So before I hand over, I'd just like to do a quick overview of what we're going to cover in today's session. Thanks, Russ. If you just pop the next slide up. I'll start. Okay, thank you. So we're going to start with a brief welcome and talk through the purpose of the conference, the themes, the sub-themes, and the selection criteria. We're going to have a very brief look at the submission form. And then we're going to talk in a bit more detail about whether to submit as a workshop or rapid fire, a little bit about the posters and really what to do before you start, and kind of any workshop do's or don'ts. We're then going to open up to a Q&A. And also we're keen to hear from you. So we'd like to hear any suggestions you have. So we've allowed plenty of time for that. And then just before we close, we've got a submission checklist that we're going to share with you, and just to really reinforce the timelines for submission. Okay, I think that's everything for now. So I'm delighted to hand over to Doreen to welcome you to the session. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Doreen. I'm the new Vice Chair of the NNN. Thanks, Debs, for the introduction and for this housekeeping. First of all, I want to tell everyone that we're really excited to hold this webinar. This is something that we thought about for a long time, and we wanted to provide this tool for the members to be able to submit very high quality proposals. And high quality proposals are not just about the writing, the level of writing, or the structure. It's a lot about the alignment to the conference theme, the alignment to the NNN itself, to the purpose of this conference. And we're going to talk about all these things moving forward. But we really wanted this year to have a clear focus of high quality proposals over multiple proposals or many proposals. So focusing on quality instead of quantity. And we will give some tips and guidelines on that moving forward. But I would like to start with, again, welcoming everyone, and really excited to have you all here joining us today. And also just talk briefly about the conference theme, and our selection criteria. So we can move to the next slide, please. Thanks, Russell. So as most of you probably know, the purpose of the NNN conference is basically we call it a community of practice, right? This is the only conference in the NTD sector that brings forward program design, program delivery, and other aspects of programs that are not research related. We have a lot of research related conferences where we showcase research results and things like that. But here we really focus on program design and delivery. And the purpose of this community of practice is to bring forward shared learnings that can apply across diseases, across themes, within the sector to multiple themes. As you know, we have different working groups, different disease-specific groups. We can all learn from each other throughout the different organizations that comprise the membership of the NNN. And there are a lot of opportunities to do so. We have the networking opportunities within the conference itself, or ahead of the conference, within the working groups throughout the year, within the different webinars. And in this conference specifically, we also have an opportunity to showcase results from successful programs or best practices through the rapid fire sessions or through presentations in the workshops. And also we could get input into work in progress through the workshops. And here we want to focus on the submissions, on the submission process to guide on what is a good submission, but also what comprises of a workshop submission compared to a rapid fire submission or a poster submission, for example. Next slide, please. Thanks. So this year's conference theme is Sustainable Innovation for Impact, Transforming the Fight Against NTDs. So we basically merged three very meaningful issues: sustainability, innovation, and impact, and ensuring that technological advancements and new strategies lead to long-term elimination of NTDs. And this theme also aligns with the WHO roadmap of overarching objectives to a sustainable elimination of NTDs. Now, we have kind of divided this very, very large theme to 6 sub-themes. The first one is AI and digital health in NTD management. And this sub-theme focuses on harnessing artificial intelligence, big data, digital health technologies to improve the detection, treatment, and monitoring of NTDs. The second sub-theme is community-driven innovations. This sub-theme focuses on showcasing locally led strategies that places communities as owners of NTD prevention, treatment, and elimination efforts. This third sub-theme is One Health Approaches to NTDs. Here we focus on recognizing the interconnectedness between human, animal, and environmental health in addressing NTDs. The fourth sub-theme is strengthening health systems for NTD elimination. And here we focus on building resilient and responsive health system to accelerate progress toward NTD elimination goals. The fifth sub-theme is climate change and NTDs, where here we focus on examining the impact of climate change on NTD transmission patterns and responses. And lastly, sustainable financing and investment in NTD programs, where we focus on ensuring long-term financial commitment and innovative funding strategies for NTD interventions. And I think this sub-theme really, touches on a very sensitive issue that our sector currently faces. We'll move on, Russell, next slide, please. Move on to the selection criteria. So the selection criteria hasn't changed a lot from previous years. The one major change that we did look at is the relevance to NTD program design and delivery. This was referred to in the past to relevance to multiple NTDs. And what we really wanted to highlight here is that if the best practices or learnings come from a program that was designed for one NTD or two NTDs, but the learnings are relevant to multiple NTDs, then this would be a viable application or submission. So we want to encourage submissions that the learnings have relevance to the larger sector, and it doesn't mean that it has to have specific, learning to that. Even if the specific learning to a specific NTD is there, if it has wider implications, it is a viable submission. So you want to focus or shift the focus to that. Having a clear objective, I think this is clear, but obviously having something that is clearly defined for the membership, that the learning is clearly defined, or that what we want to achieve, if it's a workshop, is clearly defined, and it's easy for us to track after we conduct the workshop. Quality of proposal, of course, we're talking about the quality of the writing, but also, as I said, alignment to the theme, alignment to the network as a whole, bringing forward best practices. These types of all of these come together to the quality of the proposal. Focusing on innovation, obviously aligning with this year's theme of innovation, is very important, but really bring forward innovative either solutions, mindset, mechanisms, partnerships, whatever it is, focusing, highlighting innovation. And when we talk about workshops, having an interactive and participatory element to the workshop. And when we say interactions, it's not going to be Q&A, obviously. If it's only Q&A, so a workshop with just Q&A would probably not be accepted. We are looking for a lot of interaction, having that as the focus of the workshop, the majority of the workshop itself being around the participatory element and the interactive element. Next slide, please. So as the other, the criteria we just reviewed are going to be scored from 1 to 5, when 1 is a low score and 5 is the highest score, we're also going to look at additional considerations that are on a yes or no basis. So does it demonstrate diversity of speakers, facilitators, or panelists? Now here, we know that this might not be relevant for the time of the submissions because some of us might not know our speakers yet. So that's why there's going to be an option to not score on that consideration. But if you do have that and it is diverse, so that can elevate your submission score. Does it align with the conference theme and sub-themes? Does it showcase best practices and that are relevant to the sub-themes? And does it bring forward voices from communities from endemic regions or lived experiences of people affected by NTDs? As you know, this is something that the NNN has been promoting for the past years very strongly, bringing forward voices of these communities, promoting communities to be owners of the elimination programs as a whole. And so bringing forward these lived experiences is obviously very, would impact very positively on your submission. I think that's it from my end. I want to wish everyone good luck with their submission to this year's NNN. We're really excited to receive all submissions, and I'm gonna hand over to Debs right now.
Thank you, Doreen. We're now delighted to hand over to Yael actually to talk through in a bit more detail about submitting your proposal. Thank you. Over to you, Yael.
Thanks so much, Debs and Doreen, and great to be here. And just to remind everyone why we're... Oh, this seems to be out of...
Apologies.
Oh, sorry. Debs, it's your turn again.
It is my turn. Apologies, that's my fault. 2 seconds. Okay, I'll be 1 minute. Okay, here I am, back again. Apologies for that. So yeah, very quickly, just wanted to talk through, if we could just go to the submission form slide, Russell. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that the 2025 NNN submission portal can now be accessed via the main NNN website. But we will actually, a bit later on today, we're going to post that link in the chat before we close today's webinar. So you're going to be directed to the NNN Eventuary Portal homepage, which if you look at the screenshot here, you can see on the top green banner, you'll be able to see the homepage. So from here, we really just want to ask you to take your time to read all of the instructions on the homepage. And at the very bottom, there's a download link for the full submission guidance. So the submission guidance has got a lot more detail on the sub-themes and some examples. It talks in a bit more detail about the review and the submission criteria. And also there's a step-by-step guide that's going to take you through every single field that you need to complete via the portal. So we'd really recommend you read that so that you can gather all the information before you begin. And if you look at the very bottom screenshot, which might be a little bit small on your screens, but there's some test submissions that I created. So once you've created a few submissions, you'll be also able to go to the green banner and you'll see your submissions link. And you can go and have a look at the submissions you've created. So I've got 4 test submissions there. And on the right-hand side, there's one that's showing as incomplete. So this is because when I went and created my, my test submission, I only clicked on Save and Continue Later. So it's really just to remind you that it's really important that you click on Save and Submit for each submission, once it's final, obviously, by that final deadline of Sunday, the 20th of April, at 2300 hours Eastern Time. Okay, so just also for those of you that have submitted proposals in previous years, you will actually need to go and set up a new user login to begin the submissions, because any logins or profiles from previous years will not be valid on the current 2025 portal. So when you go to that homepage, you go to login, create new user. I think that's everything for me now, but please, if you've got any questions related to the portal, just pop them in the Zoom Q&A and we can answer them a bit later on. So I will now hand back properly to Yael to talk through our recommendations for submitting your proposals. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Debs. Great. So all I was going to say is that what we'll be sharing with you in the next few slides is based on the experience of the submissions working group that I chaired last year. And hopefully much of it will make sense, but we'll have time to discuss and share experiences after the slides. So Russ, if we could move to the next one. Thank you very much. So the first thing to think about is it really a workshop that you would like to make a submission for, or is it more suitable to a rapid fire or indeed a poster presentation? If I can have one more click, Russ. Great. So the easiest way to think about this is that the rapid fires, if you've been at the NNN before, you'll know they're very short, based on a single presenter. This year we have 8 minutes dedicated for each presentation. So because of that format and because of the length of time, rapid fires are most suitable for if you've got something that you just want to tell people about. It could be a resource or a tool that you're launching. It could be a project that you've completed and that is related to just your organization and you just want to tell people about it. So it really is for something that's basically already final and that you're not really looking for input on. If we could have another click. Thank you, Russ. Workshops, because of their length and their size, are more suitable for if you're working on something that is still in progress and which it would be useful to discuss in a group setting to get feedback on. So examples of that are in previous conferences, we've had people working on designing a new manual or a new tool or a new framework for programs. We've had workshops looking at providing feedback for international processes, for example, any guidance documents that WHO is working on, where we're really trying to consult with the broader community and get a sense of how it could work best, how it can be published, what sort of languages should be included, and so on. So really, it's a useful forum for consultation. It could also be that you've got a particular topic that you want to discuss with others and get their views and get a shared sense of what the community of practice of the NNN can do. A great example of that is the ethical storytelling workshop we had last year, where really we were all coming together to discuss a common problem or an issue that we're trying to resolve. It could be also that we've got a project that's ended or is in progress that's being implemented across multiple countries or across multiple organizations, where it makes sense to get together, share the learning, and then have a discussion on that so that it can be better shared across the entire community. So again, that requires more time than just the 8 minutes that the rapid fire presentation allows. So that's basically the main consideration. But if you've got any questions, please get in touch and we can help provide feedback on what your presentation is most suitable for. Next slide, please, Russ. And then keeping in mind that as of last year, we also have the posters option. So this is a great way, especially for early career researchers or program developers, where you've got something that you've worked on and that you would like to engage stakeholders on. This is a great opportunity because posters will usually be available to participants throughout the conference, but there'll also be an opportunity for you to stand alongside the poster and engage participants on it in more of a networking type conversation. So I just wanted to make sure that that everyone is aware of this option as well. Next slide, please. So before you start and having really come to the conclusion that your project or your piece of work is suitable for a workshop submission, a few things that we want you to think about based on lessons from previous years. The first one is really important, which is who else can you collaborate with? And I'm sure that if you've engaged with this process before, you'll know that sometimes the submissions working group gets a very large amount of submissions, and we only have a very small number of slots to allocate. And therefore, we're having to sometimes go, well, this workshop and that workshop are quite similar in content. Why don't we ask them to merge their workshop? Now, that's something that we can do, but it's not ideal because it's much more effective for you to have engaged with others who are working on similar themes and then submitting a joint proposal. The best way to address this is quite obvious, but I think it's worth pointing out again, which is that the NNN has a large number of disease-specific and cross-cutting working groups. So if, for example, your proposal has a strong relevance to One Health or to conflict and emergencies, before you make a submission, it might be a good idea to, if you're not already a member of one of these groups, reach out to the chairs of the groups and see whether you can be part of a joint proposal. The details of the chairs of the working groups are available on the NNN website. But of course, if you need any help facilitating contact, please let us know and we can put you in touch. The other option is, of course, to look at the list of members of the NNN, or indeed, you might already be aware of other organizations working in a similar space to yours. Reach out to them and consider doing a joint proposal. So that's the first and very important point. The second one is around inclusivity and voices. And we really do encourage you to think as much as possible, having a real life participation of multiple countries, multiple communities, people who are affected by NTDs, people who represent organizations that work with people who are affected by NTDs, and making sure that your proposal reflects the real life implications of the issue that you want to discuss. So again, we've got plenty of great examples. I can think of a few off the top of my head that we can discuss, but for example, the One Health working group had some really fantastic presentations from people implementing programs on the ground that really give a sense of how the issues that we're working on can be addressed. Alignment with the themes, you've heard from Doreen about what these are, and I really encourage you to look very carefully at the guidance that Debs was referring to and seeing whether or not the topic that you're looking at really aligns with the themes that we're interested in. And I know that there could be lots of great topics out there which we're all passionate about, but if they're not relevant directly to the themes that we're discussing this year, it will be hard for the committee to accept them. Fourth point is around examples of best practice and lessons learned. I can't emphasize this enough. It's great to have theoretical conversations, but as Doreen has mentioned, this conference isn't really about pure research. We're trying as much as possible to generate a community of practice. So the more that you can include examples and lessons learned for discussions instead of just presenting what you've done, the better. And then finally, again, opportunities to input into work in progress. It's much more powerful to involve the community of practice, the NNN members, in work that you're still developing to make sure that it responds the best to the needs of programs, than to present something that's already been completed and then having to revise it later on. So again, this is something that we really encourage you to do in your workshop submissions. Next slide, please, Russ. Okay, now we're getting close to the end of this presentation, but a few do's and don'ts for you to think about. So thankfully, there are more do's than don'ts. But first and foremost, do have a very clear objective. What is it that you want this workshop to achieve beyond just information sharing? Is there something that you would like to walk away with from that, whether it's answering a question or getting input into a piece of work? The second point is it's really, really, really important to have an interactive format. And we really encourage you to think outside the box. So you'll see some examples in the pictures on the screen. We've had a lot of great workshop formats where we do breakout groups and we get input from participants, which is wonderful, but we can also push it a bit further. In 2019, for example, we had a fantastic workshop on behavior change programs, which used a snakes and ladders game to get people to think about program failures. So this is a really great format to think about incorporating. So be as creative as possible. We do understand that we have presentations in workshops, and that's absolutely fine, as long as the presentations aren't the whole content. So as much as possible, if we are presenting information, it should be as a conversation starter, as something for people to engage with, as something for people to ask questions about. Again, not just about sharing information. It's really important to have enough time for actual discussion. I think it's always frustrating for participants when you've gone into breakout groups, but you then only have 5 minutes to actually have a conversation, by which time you haven't even finished introducing each other to one another. So do make enough time for that as much as possible. And then the final point is linked to that, which is focusing on having really good facilitation. Now, we will have another opportunity for the selected workshop leads to get more guidance and more support on how to organize a really interactive workshop. But we do encourage you to think well in advance about how you want to facilitate the discussion, how we want to make sure that we draw as much as possible so that you meet the objective of your workshop. So I think a lot of us have experienced breakout groups in the past where that's then followed by a very long feedback to the plenary session where everyone's points get repeated time and time again. So this is really where facilitation comes in to make sure that we make the most of the time that we have. Next slide, please, Russ. Okay, and the don'ts. So again, I'm going to be a little bit obvious, but I think it's worth repeating. Don't use workshops just to showcase your work or share information. That's what the rapid fires are for. And we can also be creative about webinar opportunities and so on. So please keep that in mind. Please don't rely so much on presentations and panels. It's frankly not very exciting for the participants, and people are likely to switch off. And then finally, just having a panel and a presentation with a bit of Q&A in the end doesn't really constitute interaction, and it doesn't enable the kind of vibrant discussion that we want to have. So like Doreen mentioned, we're very unlikely to this year accept submissions that rely on that kind of format. I think now it might be time for some discussion, if I'm not wrong.
No, that's correct.
Okay, so over to you, Des.
Yeah, thank you. So we've got, we'll keep you there. I was going to say, we'll keep you there if you're happy to. But we've just got one question so far. Oh, no, we've got two questions coming through. So if I just read out the first question. So we've got one from James Mushy. So can we submit a project proposal, not necessarily a research or conducted project? Do you need any further clarification on that, or is that okay? Yeah, that's the top question in the Q&A. And just whilst I was thinking about that one, I just really do encourage you to please pop your questions in the Q&A. You can also use the raise hand feature. We can actually invite you to speak as well. That's another option. But over to that first question, yeah.
Yeah, good question. So I think what I'm getting is maybe this is a proposal about a piece of work that you would like to do. And I think that should be fine as long as the purpose of the workshop is to consult others on how best to structure your program, and questions about program design, sustainability, inclusivity, and the framework for developing it. As long as we're not talking about a funding proposal, which of course the NNN is not really the suitable forum for. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Gail. And we've now got another question. So do you have any advice or recommendations for submitting a poster proposal specifically?
Yeah, good question. So for the poster, I think we do have some guidance on that in the submissions, but a few points from last year's process, and maybe and I might also hand over to Kat on this after I respond. Posters still need to be well structured and clear, and still need to have an objective. So think very carefully about your audience. They're walking around and they want to see something that's very clear and attractive. So I would suggest having a summary at the top, a very clear structure. So maybe even dividing your poster into sections, so that you've got the purpose, what happened, what were the lessons, very, very clearly. Font size needs to be legible, so that people don't have to stand within 5 centimeters of your posters to see them, and as much as possible, diagrams and pictures rather than text. Kat, any suggestions based on last year's process?
Thank you, Yael. For the posters themselves, I think the key thing to know is that it should be a conversation starter. You shouldn't put your kind of minimized paper onto an A3 printout. So people should be able to get the information that they are interested in at a glance and want to know more about it. So you need to make the actual posters really interesting for the and you can make that mostly with visuals and keywords and highlighted. We actually created a very helpful guideline last year on how to visually create your posters once it has been accepted. As for the actual submission process, the key is to be straightforward and clear to the point of what your poster will be explaining to the NNN audience and why it matters for them to know about it. So it shouldn't be the whole poster and the whole study or program that you're describing. It should be the key highlights and its relevance to the audience, because this is how this selection committee will be able to see that it is exactly what we're looking for this year, aligns with the theme, aligns with the sub-themes, and meet that criteria of the NNN community would benefit from knowing about this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. And also just to say, you don't have to upload your post. It doesn't have to be ready for submitting the submission. I know that's been a question we've had in the past, but we actually ask you to share the actual poster later on. So it's really, that proposal that you're writing is really to sort of sell the opportunity of submitting a proposal at a post at a later date. Okay, so thank you. So let's just go on to our next question. So we've got one about rapid fire. So is the presentation meant to be on only a finalised research tools?
Yeah, so no, it doesn't have to be just for finalized research tools, and also keeping in mind that the NNN is about programs, program delivery, program design, program learning. So in general, we're not just talking about research, and if it's research, it should be operational research, just as a general principle. But no, it doesn't just have to be tools. It could be a publication that you want to share. It could be a project or an initiative that's been delivered. It could be a framework that's useful to share. It could be a summary of a meeting or a conference that you've been to. Basically, it's as long as it's relevant for this audience and that it can fit into an 8-minute presentation. Keeping in mind that you won't be able to get any feedback from the audience. That's the main difference between the rapid fire and the workshop. A workshop is there for discussion. Rapid fire is a bit of a one-way stream. There's usually a Q&A session during the rapid fire, but it's mainly for clarifications. You won't have time for in-depth discussion, which is why we're sort of saying usually what you present is something that's already been done or completed. I hope that clarifies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yael. I noticed we've got Junior's hand is raised. I've just asked you if you could just pop your question in the chat. It might, in the Q&A, it might mean we'll get to answer a few more questions, but we can always come back to you afterwards if not. Okay, so on to our next question. So from Takafira. So is there a possibility that you might recommend workshops to combine if they're on a similar track?
Yeah, so yes, and that's something that has been done every year. The only thing I would say is that what we're trying to do is minimize the amount to which that needs to be done by the committee. Again, when we've got a very large number of proposals, it's very difficult to make sure that we are on top of everything. Also, keep in mind that the reviewers, the review process is being done by a set of people. So each one of them will be reviewing a number of proposals, but not all of them. So each reviewer will only see the proposals that they see. So they won't know if there's a relevant proposal that's being reviewed by another reviewer. And the committee will only see the high-ranking proposals. So all I'm saying is, yes, we can do that, but don't rely on that. Do reach out and try and see who else you can collaborate with. And as much as possible, if we can do that through the NNN working groups or cross-cutting groups, that would be best. And if you need our support in getting in touch with any of these groups, please do let us know.
Okay, thank you again, Yael. So our next question. So we've got, are there any sponsorship opportunities for participation of people affected by NTDs in this conference, for example, as facilitators?
Yeah, I think that might be one for me to hand over to others, because we're really discussing submissions here today and not the conference logistics. So Debs or maybe Kat and Doreen, if you could respond to that.
I think I can respond to that. So we are currently in the phase of getting sponsorships for the conference, and one of the items that we're trying to sponsor for is travel awards. So there will be criteria that people can, if they fit the criteria, can apply for a travel award, either people or organization on behalf of people. That can be to be part of a workshop, obviously, or as a presenter or whichever. But again, it would have to fit with the certain criteria that is set.
Okay, thanks so much, Doreen. Okay, so we just seem to have two more questions left. So we've got one from Teresa there. So will there be an opportunity for virtual breakout groups or just one group offline that can meet and talk and work together through the task while the rest of the room are in breakout? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, great question, Teresa. And I know you're very passionate about this, and we've done this in the past with the WASH working group submissions. So a really great point. I think that this is something that we'll pick out in the follow-up session that will be held with the workshop leads, where we will be encouraging the leads to engage with the online audiences, and also offering some tools that they can do this with. So if you'll remember last year, we had that session with the workshop leads, and then we had another dedicated webinar just on using virtual whiteboards and polls. However, it's not a requirement. So I think this year we're not, as far as I know, that might change. We're not doing a proper hybrid format. So it might have to be up to the workshop leads how they engage virtual audiences, but we will definitely encourage them to do that. Debs, I don't know if we've got any more detail on the virtual participation yet.
No, I mean, as we did last year, each of the workshop leads, if they wanted to run a virtual kind of breakout discussion, that was absolutely possible. We weren't supporting in terms of technicians to be able to help facilitate that. But again, I think, you know, we're really open to trying to make this as interactive and as collaborative as possible. So for all of those successful leads that join at the workshop orientation call on the 12th of June, again, we can talk about that in more detail. But yes, it's perfectly feasible for you to set up your own Zoom breakout room, and what you would need for that is to have your own online facilitator that will be managing that kind of flow of conversation and helping facilitate those discussions. So, okay, thank you. Okay, so we've just got one last question, which actually I think I can answer, is a link to the application portal. James, you've just put that, when will that be released? So it's already live on the website. So if you go to the NNN website, we're open for submissions. And we will actually be posting the link again a little bit later on in the chat. Yael, did you want to add anything further to that? Or no, that's okay. That's brilliant. Okay, well, I think that probably, if you're happy, unless we have any other questions, we could move on to the next section of our agenda. We're shortly coming to the end. So thank you very much, Yael, for all of that brilliant response to all those different questions that we got. And thank you to everybody for your questions. Okay, so we also want to take the opportunity to hear from you today. So what we've done is we've set up a couple of short polls. So firstly, what we'd like to do is, I know I had a quick look at the attendee list, and we have got some previous successful workshop leads from previous years. And we just wondered if you might be willing to share some top tips and ideas on submitting a successful workshop proposal. So we're going to start with that. We've just got two questions. And then our second one, we'd like to open up to all of our attendees and ask for your feedback and ideas on what makes a successful session. So I can see Russ has already put up the link. So please do click on the QR code. If you're going to menti.com, the code is 25591948. And again, just so that first question, really to any of our past workshop leads that are in the audience that would like to share any tips and ideas for submitting a successful workshop proposal. So I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to click on the link and see if you can add some of your ideas. We'd like to hear from you. Don't be shy is all I'm going to say. Thank you, Russ, for posting the link as well. Thank you for them starting to come through. Okay, I'll just give you a few more seconds and then we can have a look at some of those. Okay, brilliant. So do keep them coming. So we've got a few, let's just see. So Russ, if you're happy to scroll up and down. So we've got plan with other partners as early as possible. I think that's a really, really great idea, really collaborative as well. And it's good to get started early. Let's see. So we've got to have some speakers from NTD endemic countries to bring depth to the conversations. Again, fantastic suggestion. Again, another one, collaborating with cross-cutting groups to get the most diverse content from multiple organisations and perspectives. Yeah, do if you want to jump in, if you want to pick anything out that you think's really, really helpful, do please feel free to put your video on and join. Let's have a little look. Yeah, we definitely like that. So ensure it's participatory and design the activities to ensure that those new to the area are able to get involved as much as those who are already familiar with it. That's really, really really important point.
Yeah, I think the involvement of persons affected is really key, and we've seen some really fantastic workshops bringing that perspective on board in the last couple of years. And I think maybe I would even go as far as to say reach out to some of the previous workshop leads that you've seen. So the ethical storytelling workshop from last year, the comms group, Subin and Anna, the DMDI group, who always do a really fantastic job bringing in affected people. There's always a way. I think we sometimes maybe worry that it's going to be too complicated or costly or whatever, but please do try and do that.
Okay. Thank you, Yael. So I think we can always share these ideas post webinar as well. So we'll make sure we do that. Thank you all very much for your suggestions. Right, and our next poll. So Russ, if you could just pop the next one up, please. Okay, thank you for just, yeah. So this is to everybody that's joined us today. So what we'd like you to do is please share one or two key elements that make a good workshop from a participant perspective. So, you know, that could be thinking back to previous NNNs and thinking about a particular activity or something that worked really well that you really enjoyed and that you felt had fantastic outcomes. Or it could be something from another event or conference, but just something that you think would make a difference. So we're really keen to hear from as many people as possible, because when we can take those ideas and kind of like incorporate those into our proposals and our sessions. Thank you. Yeah, so that's an interesting one, discussions that go beyond the workshop and happen throughout the conference. And I think often it's those workshops that conversation keeps going after the conference as well, doesn't it? So you keep that momentum. Thank you so much for sending these through. Yeah, again, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, that's really great points from everybody. Maybe just to emphasize a few things on breakout discussions and you know, hearing from people. it's so important for people to then see that their input has been taken on board and to hear what happens next. So it's a two-way conversation. So you could also think of creative ways to keep in touch with participants, to really show how their input has been incorporated and then share it after the conference or during the conference. Yeah, so that's really, really good. And the facilitator can also do that. And you can, thinking about being playful, use the space. The fact that we're all in a group means that you can walk around, you can physically pick up post-it notes or things that people have worked on and join them together into themes. And then that makes it easier for you as facilitators to take that feedback on board. So yeah, just it's not just that people need to be heard, they need to know that you've heard them and see how you've used their input.
Thank you, Yael. Do you want to take any more time looking at any of those responses, or shall we share them afterwards? We've got a few more left of the session.
I think it would be great to share this together with the checklist in the end after this webinar.
Definitely. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Well, a big thank you to all for your ideas and your input. It really does make a big difference. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to again hand back to you for just to really go through that submission checklist. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay, so this is just a bit of a handy checklist, and huge thanks to Anna from Unlimited Health for this suggestion. And we'll share this with all of you after this webinar, but it's just a way to make sure that before you press send on the submission button, you've checked that you've done all of these things. So first and foremost, please read the submission guidelines carefully. I know it's a lot of text, but it will tell you everything that you need to know. Do you have a clear objective? What are you trying to achieve? Does your summary, and that's the short 70-word description of the workshop that will appear on the application, on the conference app and the program, does it sell your session? Does it tell people what you're going to do so that they'll come to your workshop and not the other three that are happening at the same time? Is it the right format? Again, rapid fire workshop or poster. Does it add value to the community of practice? Yeah, really important. Is there anything that others can learn from this? Does it relate to the conference theme and sub-theme? Have you reviewed your proposal? Is it clear, and is the quality high? No typos, please. But it's not just about typos. And then the last three bullets are specifically to do with workshops, whereas the ones in black are for everything. So for the workshops, how can you make your workshop most interactive? We talked about that just now. Does the proposal include voices from endemic countries and or people with lived experience? And then finally, have you thought about who you can collaborate with? Have you reached out? Is your proposal as good as it can be? So all of that will be shared with you after the webinar. But yeah, please get in touch if you need any further support, and I'll hand back over to Debs.
Thank you so much, Yael. Fantastic. So we just have one last slide left to look at, which is about the timelines. So just really to recap and emphasize those. So the portal is already open, which is very exciting, and it will be open until Sunday, the 20th of April. So that's at 2300 hours Eastern time in the US. Following that, we're going to be entering a blind review process where we take the recommendations from the blind review process to the submission task group, and then ultimately we make recommendations to the steering committee to make those final decisions. And they're going to be made right at the very end of May. So we are planning to send out all of our confirmation emails. So all submitters will be notified on Friday, the 30th of May. So that's whether your submission has been successful or not. There's, as Yael mentioned earlier, there's only 12 workshop sessions available. So we do ask that those 12 workshop leads confirm and accept their workshop on Friday the 6th of June, so that we can plan for that. And there is on Thursday the 12th of June, there's at 1 o'clock British Summer Time, we've got a workshop orientation call. So all workshop leads, we'd ask you to attend that call. We ask any workshop submitters, if you're going to put in a proposal, please do put a placeholder in your diaries for this, because it'd be really important that you can join. It's going to be a 90-minute session this year, and it's going to include obviously the whole orientation, but as Yael mentioned earlier, some more tips on facilitation and some other ideas as well. If you're one of the 12 workshop leads that are successful, you'll also, as well as the confirmation, you'll get an Outlook invite for the actual meeting on the 30th of May as well. Then all rapid fires, all posters and all workshop leads have just about a month to pull all the final details together. So we have a deadline of the Friday the 11th of July. And if you're a poster or a rapid fire presenter, we want to make sure that we have the final title, the short description, and the confirmed speaker. All of those details are accurate and correct. And for our workshop leads, what we would be hoping for is you'd have completed your tracker, and that's going to have a full running order of the whole, all the different activities, all those interactive activities that you're going to be doing, and it's going to have confirmed speakers as well, speakers, facilitators, and rapporteurs. We ask also that you register all of your speakers at that stage as well. And that's actually really important for us from a logistics point of view, because our next stage at the end of July is to make sure that we've got the timetable set up. And we can't really fully do that if we don't have all the speaker names, because we do know that there are some speakers that do speak in multiple sessions. So that's an important deadline for us, 11th of July. And then finally, really, there's a further deadline, which is Friday the 5th of September, and that's the final deadline. So for checking all content on the online platform, finalising your workshop trackers, and actually uploading all presentations and video content by then. So I think that's probably everything in terms of the timelines. As we've said, you're going to receive an email with the link to the recorded version of this webinar, the checklist, and obviously the amazing feedback we got from everybody and your ideas. So we will share that. For any submission related queries, please feel free to email them to admin@nnnevents.com, and we'll come back to you. Once we're past the 30th of May, we'll and I've notified all of our successful leads and presenters. Kat, our network coordinator, will pick up any content and queries with you, and she will be chasing up for any titles and description and any amends to your program, and looking at all of the trackers for us as well. So I think just to say, it's really exciting to be at this stage. We're really excited to see your submissions coming through, and we really wish you all the very best, and are just looking forward to seeing your submissions. So thank you very much.